This is the Women of Wonder podcast, where we help women tap into their superpowers. Welcome back, everyone. We are here today with an exciting guest. For those of you who have been following along, Women of Wonder is here to really help women tap into their superpowers. So we're really excited to share Desiree, the founder of Benshen. For those of you who haven't met her, we'll let her share a little bit about how she's gotten to where she is today. But for me, Desiree, you're someone who shows up as creative, courageous, very bold, and always down to build into your toolbox. And yeah, really curious to hear from you. How are things going these days?
That's such a broad these days.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. That's such a sweet introduction. And that's like really hitting that Leo moon, the courageous. I'm like, am I? Because I shit my pants half the time. I do half the things I do. Can I curse on here? I forgot to ask you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, because I have the mouth of a sailor. But thank you for that really lovely introduction. These days, we just did an immersion. So I run a company called Benshen.co, which started in 2019. It actually started before that. I was doing these workshops in my living room, and I had like 6 women come over, and we did some like witchy shit. Do you know what I mean? And we would just do these like new moon, full moon. And then things just started to snowball. And then I launched Benshen course in 2019, which started off with 30 women. And I never imagined that it was going to take off, and it just really did. And so, and then with COVID and lockdown, it just really started to really grow, because a lot of people really were looking for community and to feel a sense of purpose in a time that was really uncomfortable and really scary for a lot of us. And so then after that, people were like, hey, shit's open. Like, are we going to do workshops in person? And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. So we started doing these immersions and these events, and they're so fun to do. And this one was actually, we just had one on Saturday. And it was really fun because it was very different than anything we've ever done before. This one, we actually didn't have any yoga or meditation in it, which I think kind of like blindsided some people. But I just was so excited. I have so many incredible, talk about Women of Wonder, so many incredible friends and female entrepreneurs that I just have these incredible conversations with over dinner or over a cup of coffee. And they all are so interesting. And I was just like, let's just put together an immersion where I invite all these women and just have them share. And it was really fun, and we had a great time. So now in the next few days, in these days, I've just been resting and just sort of, like before our call, I took like a very long hot shower, and I'm just, really enjoying very low-key time right now, which I like to share, because I think that sometimes people can look at entrepreneurs like you and I, and they're like, all you do is work and hustle. And it's like, no, you have to have downtime and just chill. So that's where I'm at right now.
That's great. And I feel the same way when I see, how quickly you're moving. I was listening to your Q&A yesterday, and I think that there's so much that you're pouring into Benshen and what you're building that, yeah, it appears on the outside like it never stops. So I'm glad you're sharing that rest is still a critical part.
I don't know if you know are you into human design?
Yes.
What's your design?
I'm a manifester.
I'm a manifesting generator. So we have very similar traits in some degrees, and I'm a manifesting generator. And if I try to, it's like kind of frustrating, because it's like, I'm going to take a vacation now, and then I'm resting. And then when I'm resting, all the ideas start pouring in. I'm like, no, vacation. I just get so inspired, and so much things come through. And it's just funny because I do work a lot, and I spend a lot of time working, but I'm not like, one of the things I had to check in, which we can dive into more later. My cat has just joined. She's literally just
welcome
when any attention is not on her. But for me, it was kind of like adjusting how I work, because I knew that I liked to work at what I do, and I feel very inspired by what I do, and I just get lots of inspiration. So it was really kind of checking in, like, I can't work traditional. Like, I can't be running around to meetings all day long, because then I just get really burnt out running around. But I can be researching and writing and getting inspired and looking up visuals and talking and all that stuff, because that's really easy for me. So that's where human design is really cool, because when you figure out like what your design is and what works for you, it changes everything.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Because as a manifester, I need adequate rest or it's game over. So that's, yeah, trying to like
Yeah.
combine that though, infuse that in relationships. Like my co-founder Nisha is a projector. So we actually are really attracted to generators and manifesting generators since they help level us out. We're like, we'll come up with the ideas. Please help us execute on these. So it
Yeah.
really helps.
One of my like right hand woman on my team, I've the most amazing team ever. Lauren, Nicole, my sister Michelle, and our photographer Olivia, and they're all so unique and special in different ways. It's so cool to see how people's different designs just really bring their gifts to the table. My sister's a manifesting generator. I don't know how. Like she's just feels so. She's more generator for sure. Lauren's a true generator, and she is just like she just. I'm just like, can you?
Yeah.
She's like, I already did it. And I'm like, how'd you? I figured it out, and I'm like, how did you even know? But she's like, I know. Okay, not anything else do you need from me? And then Nicole's a projector, I believe, and she's really good at like seeing 10 steps ahead for me of like certain things, like how to execute things better. I forget what Liv is. Liv is my little like fairy. She's like, is like we're just on such a spiritual level together. Liv and I visually, it's very rare to meet people that have that same vision as you aesthetically. So that. But I love human design, especially for manifestors. We need to figure out how to rest. I kind of like cheat it. I'm like, I'm just working laying down. No, that's resting. I'm in the sun. I'm by the pool. That's resting. And they're like, no, it's not. I'm like,
As long as it feels like it is to you, then you're good.
exactly.
Mine sometimes is a 5 minute eye close. Like just need to reset my brain and then
I
get
love
back
that.
into it.
I
So
love that. Okay,
yeah.
that's good. Yeah.
So you even just shared like your immersion recently had no yoga or meditation in it.
Mhm.
And as someone who's had many chapters in their lives, like starting out in fashion and then going into the yoga and acupuncture, and now being in this world where I feel like you're showing up as this leader and advocate for business and for women who are really trying to create something individual to them. I'm curious, like how that evolution and how all of those different chapters have fused together to make you the person you are today.
It's like classic MG, manifesting generator, right?
Yeah.
I'm just like 75 different things. And it's funny because this new chapter kind of just like arrived and it was like, here's what you're doing now. And I was like, really? Okay. But it's kind of just like as a manifesting generator, I don't mean to turn this into a human design topic. I just really love learning about human
Mm-hmm.
design. And I feel like, before I really understood about human design, I felt like a failure because I was just doing and trying so many different things and I didn't like anything. Like I got a master's degree in acupuncture and I don't do it. Do you know what I mean? And then like
Yeah.
I've done 3 yoga trainings and I taught yoga and meditation for a long time and I still teach, but I just was like never seeing things like to the end, you know? And fashion, I started that, I loved that. But I always had like good relationships. But it wasn't like I left because I was like, fuck this. It was like I left because I
Yeah.
just stopped feeling inspired by it. And I just wanted, I remember when I was getting into yoga, I was so passionate about it. I just wanted to learn everything that I could. And that's what I just didn't have time to be working in the fashion industry anymore. And then once I started getting into acupuncture, which is a whole story, randomly met a Taoist grandmaster in disguise at an art gallery on the Bowery when I was 19 years old. And I ended up studying with him years later, which was a very like mystical time of my life. But I just was really into that. And then I found Kundalini yoga and I was just that was the most interesting because I felt like I could really it really made a lot of there was a lot of questions that I had about spirituality and the mind body connection that was really laid out very clearly because it was a lot of it was kind of all over the place and really hard to understand, very like too spiritual or too out there or too, that didn't make sense to me. So, I think that just without sort of taking this into a 5-hour conversation, I got into the wellness industry and I was doing all the right things and I was doing, but I was really unhappy. And I was, the more I tried, the sicker I got, like to fix myself, the sicker I got. And then about 2017, I was just like, this is not working. This is also like the very long story short. And I was just like, this is not working. So, and I had all sorts of health issues going on. And I was just so obsessed with fixing myself. And I was just like, this is not working. My mentor, Chris Chun, was like, this is not working. You need to try this from a different angle. And he's like, you need to try it. Like, just even him just saying that, he's like, you need to take this on from a different angle. And I remember this part was the most important because I started dating this guy that worked in menswear, and I hadn't been in the creative field for a very long time. And at the same time that happened, I decided to take a month off from doing anything. I was like, I'm just not going to care. I was like, 1 month, I'm just going to take a break from all this wellness stuff because let's just see what happens. Because I've been doing this for 6 years and it's not working, So that decision there, and then meeting this guy, and he had a menswear line, and then he invited me to the opening show, and I just remember walking in. It was like an evening party at the Rose Bar, and then like St. John was it was just like I walked in, and it was just like I was just so like it just felt electric. Do you know what I mean? I was like, oh my God, I haven't felt that way in years. Like it was always like I had to do X, Y, and Z in order to feel, and I never felt it. It was like I was always reaching for this elusive feeling. And then I was like, I just walked into a party that had some of the most creative people in the industry there, and the music, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I'm doing it wrong. I was like, I'm going to go back to creativity. I'm going to go back to like the things that inspire me, the things that light me up. And that's how I started doing, that's really how Benshen started, like the Benshen that we know it, because I really wanted to I always loved visuals and images, and I'm very like, since I was younger, like ripping out pages in magazines, and I had friends that were doing creative direction and consulting for brands, and I was like, I can do that, but I didn't know how to get started. And I was like, I really believed I could do it. I was like, I could do that for sure. So I made a vision. I read Lewis Howe's book, The School of Greatness, back in 2017, and I made a vision, and I did the kundalini prosperity meditation that I had been learning, and I manifested 3 clients in a month out of the blue, quote unquote. And so I just kept doing that. And then I was like, I want to share this with people because I just really loved it. And that's how I created the first course in 2019. So it's a long-winded story, but it's really just like what I eventually realized is that so many of us are chasing after some feeling that we think we're going to feel if we drink enough green juice, or if we do enough yoga, or we do it. But all of that is really just supposed to support us while we're living our lives. Do you know what I mean? Our lives are not, I saw a meme one time that was like, all I do all day is drink green juice and listen to podcasts. I'm bored. And I was like, LOL, because for real, like, what are we living? It's what are we living for, basically? So that's really how it became. And then just to answer the part about business, I just think that came naturally from running a business, and not just that, but like running a business and combining everything I've learned from my mentors, from all the coaching seminars I've been to, which I thought was doing for like other reasons, and then I'm like, oh, that actually made me really good at business and like really good at being a leader. And I feel like these are things that usually aren't taught hand in hand. So just really sharing a lot of that stuff just came really naturally, and seeing that people really like it. So, and then they're all asking me for dating stuff, but I'm like, okay, one thing at a time now. Just let me, yeah.
So that'll be the next year, the next evolution of maybe we'll see.
They're like, yeah.
But it's incredible that you've allowed yourself to really follow these interests and then dive so deeply into them that they become something that you're so passionate in, and then can filter that through and share with others. Because I do feel like, what I'm seeing anyways, is there's many women that are now starting to invest in themselves, and, especially Benshen, like, you don't forget your first Benshen course, that's for sure. And just the transformation that you're hearing about, and the way that I even transformed in 1 month of work. But I'm curious, what you're seeing in terms of like shifts and people really taking that invest in yourself seriously these days.
It's actually funny you asked that because a woman just reached out to me yesterday, and without sharing too much information, because I didn't ask, if I'm sure she would love it, but which has happened to a lot of people, is that she was like, oh my gosh, my period changed from doing. She's like, oh, what kind of witchcraft is this meditation? She's like, my period. She's like, I've been doing everything to get my period to like, balance out, and I've had really heavy periods, and it's been amazing this month. And she's like, what is this meditation? She was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I just asked her, I was like, that's so incredible. I was like, but overall, how are you feeling? And she's like, well, I feel more confident and more powerful. And I was like, yeah, like that's really what's happening. Is like you're showing up, you're investing in yourself, you're showing up and you're changing how you feel about yourself. And our period really reflects our emotions like that build up from the month. So the
Wow.
symptoms that we have for the most part, like because some months your PMS is worse than others, or your cramps are worse. And if you take inventory and you look at it over time, you'll be like, oh, well, because it's the month before, because it's the build up until you bleed.
Mm.
So that was just really cool to hear from her reach out and just be like, because everyone's like, what's the witch? And I was like, no, there's no witchcraft. It's just when you start to feel better about yourself because
Right.
you're showing up for yourself, a lot changes, and it can happen really quickly. Because and that's what I just, and just so many different things. I mean, I've seen women, leave relationships, or people leave relationships that aren't serving them, and then meet their partner that they're with now. I've seen people, oh my God, we have one woman who sent me a before and after picture of before Benshen, and she had blemishes all over her face. And this was how I was before, and she really, I was like, I just saw myself in her so much, the really dark circles under her eyes. You could see how unhappy she was. And then the second picture, I was like, it looked photoshopped. Like her eyes were sparkling, and there was no filter, no makeup, nothing. Her skin was just like silky smooth. She was like, this is before and after Benshen. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing, And people launching businesses, people getting their money, sorted out for the first time. So many different, because Benshen's really a course where it's really not even a course anymore. It's like a monthly membership where every month you create a vision for what you want to. Most people create a vision January 1st for their birthday.
Right.
That's it. Right.
Yeah.
And then we don't really follow through after a couple of weeks, because we're not changing the deeper habits. So Benshen's really every month you are moving a little bit more into the direction of what it is that you want. So so we just see people, we have some people that have been doing it for like 24, 25, 26, 30 months in a row, which is so cool to see as well. They just sign up every month like the gym.
It's incredible. And to have that as something you can clearly see in terms of transformation. And I like that you share that it's not the magic necessarily. It's the fact that people are investing in themselves. They're taking the time and the space to create that vision. And then they're applying these practices, which I think are in some ways maybe like the missing piece for some. I don't know, like I'm trying to personally like try to figure out, like, I meet with an acupuncturist, I practice my yoga, I do all these things that I can tell is like moving things within me. But at the end of the day, to answer that question around like, how does it make you feel? Like, how are you feeling after you've invested in yourself, that you've applied these practices? So it's a curious thing for people to explore, and not a one size fits all. However, having that space, and I think one thing that you've done incredibly is building community around it. People who talk about Benshen, I think you said this on the first time I signed up, was you don't need to tell people that you're a part of Benshen. Like when the time comes, they're going to ask you, like, what are you doing?
Well, that was a really funny teaching that I actually got from Kundalini yoga, because there was one workshop I was at where they were like laughing about how like, don't ever ask your partner to do the yoga with you. And it was just like, just go wake up in the morning and just go in the bathroom and just like make some noise. And then, like just, cleaning up, and then they're going to like wake up and be like, oh, they're up doing their yoga. Like, don't be like, you have to do, because I used to be that person. I was like, I was very preachy. And I
Right.
realized over time that the only reason I was ever preaching something is I didn't believe in it myself and I wasn't doing it myself and I wasn't really like doing the work. And so once I learned that, that was really funny because I stopped being a bitch and stopped being so annoying to everyone. And I just really started practicing and just started seeing like I think the biggest thing that is like you have to do it, not just benching, but anything, like
Right.
anything that you want to do. There's so many tools to change our lives, and the challenge is doing it. It's not that it's very there's it's hard. Um, it's that the hard part is actually doing it and showing up, and that's why in Benshen, of course, we have the accountability aspect, um but yeah, I was like, just do it and let your life change. And then people are just gonna be like, what is happening? Like, what are you doing? And they're just gonna want a piece of it, you know? And I think that's the most powerful thing that for anybody that's really launching a business is to really just create something that's so special, whether it's a product or a service or a food or, whatever, that it's so good that people are just like, oh my God, did you listen to that podcast? Or did you try that thing out? And I think people spend so much time in marketing versus actually making sure their product or service is really good. And I just put everything I got into Benshen. And I also, similar to what you were sharing with me earlier, that I really just created what I felt I didn't have. I always felt I didn't have good relationships with women growing up. In high school, I was made fun of for being deaf and for having eating disorders. And meanwhile, the eating disorder stuff was triggered by overdoses in my family and a lot of loss. And that's how I controlled it was just a mess. And I never
Wow.
felt safe with women. And I always felt safe with the boys, like, which is how my mom was. And so later on, I was like, I want to create a space where women feel safe because I didn't have that, you know? And so everything that I didn't want to experience, I created for Benshen. Like no gossip, no
Fantastic.
drama, no this, no
Yes.
bullshit, just lifting each other up, cheering each other on. And it's so rare to have that. So when people find something like that, whether it's for women or for anybody, they just want to be part of it.
So, how would you maybe describe what helped you move from that place of feeling more comfortable with the boys to, clearly embodying these incredible relationships with women? What changed?
I don't remember what was the first, like, how it started really. I can't even trace back to like where I think it was just like when I started teaching the Art of the Radiant Woman workshops, which were part of when I was teaching Kundalini yoga, and I just saw all these amazing women coming together for the workshops and sort of just learning about the psychology of women when we don't feel good about ourselves and why we do what we do, like why we gossip. Which, by the way, anybody listen to this, stop gossiping. It's the craziest thing because when we gossip or talk shit about someone, we actually, one, is just not nice. And it's just not nice. Nobody should be doing it. But number two, if that doesn't solve it for you, when you talk shit about someone or you gossip, you've just told the entire room your biggest insecurity about yourself and what you think that you can't have. And so you talk shit about someone else to make you look better. So anybody that gossips, I'm just like, I'm not interested in what you're saying right now. But just really understanding all of that and like really learning about the psychology, I was like, I need to share this and I need to share this and to try to just like, and then I think I also just met some really cool women at the time that also showed me a new way of friendship. And as the byproduct of that, I think just naturally like you attract things that you were looking for. So I think I started to want to heal. I knew very consciously like I want to heal this relationship that I have with women. And so I think just sort of putting that out there and setting that intention and also thinking about like what I didn't like and the kind of women I really want to just be surrounded with. And I just started to meet some really cool people and not like cool, quote unquote cool,
Yeah.
but just like really fun. Like I think of like my friend Liddy, who you might know, she used to teach for Benshen and she's just the fucking coolest. Like she's just so unhinged. And I just like remember the first time I met her, she just like shirt off, walking around. She's like, that's hot. She's like, oh yeah, girl, you look hot. Just so body confident and just such a cheerleader for me. And just she's so funny. And I always felt so safe around her. And I just started meeting this whole different group of women that were just so incredible like that. And that healed a lot of my relationship to myself too. So it was this whole like culmination of a lot of different things. And I think that step one is really learning about me and my own insecurities. And then step two was thinking about who I wanted to surround myself with and just starting to and then the other one, the big one, was once I really knew that I had this fear of other women too, because I was afraid of groups and cattiness and being talked about. I literally put myself in uncomfortable situations and confronted those fears. And some people weren't my people, and that's fine. But I got really good at being able to talk to all kinds of different people. And then some people I was like, oh my God, I was so afraid to come over here because I was afraid you were going to be mean. And you're actually the fucking coolest person I've ever met in my life. So there's so many different layers to it, but I think that that's probably my answer summed up.
Great. And starting with the self too, and the
Mhm.
relationship that you had, I think that makes a lot of sense. And because you spent all this time in the wellness space, I'm curious, and because it seems like, a lot of the community that you built is women now, from,
Mhm.
what you see on the Benshen side anyways. But I'm curious, like, what your relationship to being a woman has become.
Oh, that's such a great question. Um, I think that that's a really beautiful question. Thank you for asking that. I think for the first time, like really, I'm 33 and I feel better and more like hotter and like really just appreciate every aspect of my body than ever. So from a physical perspective, I just feel better than ever. And because I struggled with eating disorders and body dysmorphia and all kinds of issues since childhood. So from a very physical standpoint, I feel more beautiful than ever. And it's so crazy because the things that I used to, I big boobs and a big butt and I'm 5'5". And I used to hate that. I was like, oh my gosh, it's gonna
Yeah.
draw too much attention. And I think just surrounding myself with so many body confident women, I just changed everything for me. And that sort of like level of self-love. And then also the really cool thing that I've just um sort of like the negative aspects of being a like negative quote unquote aspects of like being a woman that people are like, oh, be small or be quiet or don't be dramatic or don't be too much, and really just being like, no, I'm gonna be too much, and if I'm too much, go
Yeah.
find less type of thing. And not too much where you're like being jealous or catty or this, and we're all human, we have our moments, but really too like where you think you're too much. Oh, if I like say this, is it too much? It's like, no, do all of that. And really just I had a friend that passed away 2 years ago, and almost 3 years ago now. Wow. And he and I were very close. And he always made me feel so safe being a lot. And it was just like, that's the parts that he loved. And that's like, not just him, but other people I was meeting at the time too, but him especially. And I got to really experience like, oh my God, those parts of myself that I thought were too much or like too crazy, that's actually like what makes me so special. And he did that for everybody. Do you know what I mean? He just really loved, like, the more weird you were, the more he like adored you. And I took that into every relationship, not just romantic, but friendship, like everything. I was like, this is who I am. I'm a fucking roller coaster. I am like hilarious and I tell the crazy stories and I curse and I love aliens and I love this and I love that. Like I'm all of this. And I'm not gonna make myself smaller to fit into a box. And sometimes I'm a bitch, like we were doing some, not a bitch like to be mean, but like I'm direct. And we were dealing with some stuff for an event we were doing. And the guy, one of the guys that we were working with, he was this really funny, fabulous man. And I was just, we had some tension, we had some things that we had to like work out,
Yeah.
miscommunications. And I came in with this like, I'm a Scorpio sun and Leo moon. So when I can be nice until you fuck with me, and I'm never going to be mean. I'm just going to be very like, I'm not a doormat. So, and I come in, I'm like, like telling him like it is. And then later we laughed about it because I was like, he didn't know I was deaf. And I told him, I was like, I'm 50% deaf, completely unrelated. And we were just like, we resolved that next topic. And then, and I was like, I'm 50% deaf. And sometimes people ask me questions and I don't answer and they think I'm a bitch. And he's like, well, you are one. And I was like, yeah. And it was just funny because he's like, yeah, that too. And it was funny because he said it with such a big smile, not in like a way that was like, you're a mean bitch. It was just like, you're a bad bitch kind of thing.
Bad bitch.
You know what
Much
I mean?
different. Yes. Oh
Different.
yeah.
Yeah. And I just
Yeah.
loved it because I was like, I wasn't being punished, quote unquote, for it. Like he saw my fierceness and was just like, all right, like, yeah, like I got you. And I didn't get punished for it. And he was just like, all right, next order of business. And I like loved that moment because
No
I
kidding.
think a lot of times we're afraid of being in our power and that we're gonna drive people away. And you're gonna drive the right people away and you're gonna drive the wrong people away, you're gonna attract the right people. So I think like really the next evolution of like me being a woman is really just embracing all that is of being a woman. I'm not being afraid of it because that's what is so fun about being a woman, right?
Hell yeah. I
Yeah,
love it. And
yeah.
especially, yeah, like all of those aspects of you, like all this history, all this that you bring into yourself and the woman that you are today, and the fact that you are so in love with this person right here and right now. I feel like that's what radiates and that's what people notice. And that's what that bad bitch attitude comes from. It's like people see it. So I'm curious
And there's more to go, by the way. It's
oh
never
yeah,
done,
no,
it's
no, no,
never
no.
done.
Just keeps getting better, I'm sure.
Hmm.
Uh, I have one last question for
Of
you.
course, yeah,
And you have been sharing quite a few things around creativity.
yeah.
And I'm curious to hear what is your creative process?
Chaos.
Chaos.
Just
Yes.
pure chaos. There is no creative. That's a great question. It's funny because especially this year, I'm like, I need to become, and I hate to use that, excuse me, that word need. So cancel that word. I am inspired to become more structured around the creative process. I think it just comes with also being a manifesting generator where you just, I'm a creative person in general. It's really hard to like like when I get inspired, I'm inspired. And that can be at 11 p.m. It can be at dinner, which really sucks because it's like, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to focus. I'm going to focus. I'm not going to think about that. I'm going to focus. I'm going to be present. It just hits when it hits. I'm actually reading Rick Rubin's new book, which is really great. If anybody hasn't read it, you have to get it. Um, and so it's kind of like, I mean, there's a balance. You have to find the balance, right? Because the balance is like, Seth Godin talks about this a lot. Like you have to create the space in order for the creativity to come through and to have that discipline where you're like, okay, I'm going to sit down every day to write for 1 hour. And whether it's shitty or whether it's great, doesn't matter. I'm just sitting down to create the space for creativity to come through. But in terms of like visually, creatively, like because I do all the graphics for Benshen, visually, I'm just always looking, and I'm just always on Pinterest and Tumblr and seeing things, and I've had Tumblr since 2009. I have like the
Wow.
same
Yeah.
account that I've been following, and I just have a very specific visual taste and visual identity that it's funny because I never thought I would make graphics. I was like, I'm never gonna do that, and then now I make all the graphics. um But that just comes from just really just getting inspired and saving everything. And then in terms of ideas, like the creative process of what to share, I'm always just sharing what I'm excited about. And I think that that will save a lot of people from the stress of like, what do I do? It's like whatever you're excited about, other people want a piece of. And whatever you're curious about, people are probably curious about it too. And the questions that you are looking for answers to, I'm sure that other people are looking for it too. And I had one mentor that always said the best way to get really good at something is to teach it. So I remember there's like some things and when I was teaching kundalini yoga that I didn't really understand the concepts for, and I felt really insecure to teach it. And then I was just like, I'm gonna just teach it. I'm gonna create workshops around it. And now I have it all memorized. At one point I was like, how am I going to remember this? And they're going to think I'm a fraud. And now I can just recite all of it off the back of my hand, but it came from teaching. And I think that, the creative process is comes and goes, I think that you really have to, I think that it was Rick Rubin that was talking about this. Like when it comes, you have to follow it. Like you
Yes.
have to follow it because I love what he said in his book. He's like, if you don't follow it and you don't take grab onto it, it's going to move to someone else because that idea has to be expressed. And it's not about like, oh my God, I missed that opportunity. It's just, it's arrived. And if you can grab it and let that. And also, I think Jim Rohn, another inspirational person, and that he's passed, but he was this huge like motivational speaker and coach and all sorts of things. And he basically was like, when is the best time to start something? Now, when the inspiration is high and when the passion is high, because then I think he called it the law of diminishing return, I think, or something like that, where he was basically just like, the longer you wait, the less like the fire is going to go out.
Right.
So you want to just jump on it. And I see so many people get stuck in the perfectionist process, and like they try to make it perfect. And you really have to put things out into the world. When it feels like, this one woman used to work for us, her name is Shivan, and she would always be like, "Des, done, not perfect." And that really like it really struck me, because I launch things now and they're not perfect. They're good and they're done, but they become better and better over time. So I think that the creative process is just, for me, it's chaos right now, because it's just like I will get super inspired all the different times. And for people who also can relate to like the creative process being chaos, what's really helped me as my notes section. Whenever I get ideas, I just write them down on my phone. I speak them into my phone. I do voice recordings when I have things, because sometimes I think things and it might never come again in that way. So if you can, you just try to write it down as soon as possible and just let that. And we're really lucky now. We don't need like a notebook. You don't have to like go home. We can use our phone and we can just be like, okay, this, just make note of it. And also meditation. When I'm meditating, a lot of ideas come to me. So I do keep a notebook by me when I'm meditating, because that's when you can really be a channel. Some of my best business ideas have come while I was meditating. So, and write it down when it comes. Don't wait till it's done. You're not going to ruin the meditation. That's the purpose of meditating. So you can create space for life force and vitality and creativity to come through. So it's like, don't wait until the end. Let it, keep that notebook beside you. So yeah.
And I
Benshen
heard
course came to me during a meditation.
Really?
Yeah. It was just the idea. I just saw it just start to lay out, and like, it was just, I was like, oh, okay, that who knows if that's going to work, but all right.
So meditate, done, not perfect, just go for it, and make sure that you're writing things down. And I actually have that book right underneath yours. So
amazing.
you're
Mine's over there.
You're having a book club. When is that?
Yeah. I don't remember. The 18th, I think, of April. It's gonna be virtual. So I think it's the 18th. I have to look at the calendar. It's the 18th, 7 to 8 p.m. We stopped doing the book clubs for a while because no one was reading the books. Everyone would show up to the book club. Like, we would have like a packed Zoom room, and I'd be like, so how was the book, everyone? They'd be like, oh, we just came to hear you talk about the book so we could decide if we should read it or not. I was like, okay, that's how it was. So funny. I mean, we were dying because in the course I teach them that you only have X amount of time and X amount of energy in the day. So you want to make sure that you spend your time and energy wisely. So like, you taught us we only have X amount of time and X amount. So we're just going to come and get the cliff notes for you. And then we'll decide if we want to read it or not. I was like, it was hilarious, but it was just shows you like what people want to be part of community, which is funny in any way. Not that's funny, but that they'll just show up to anything, because they want to be part of something and something good. So I made them promise they're going to read the book, at least like a couple pages. Do you know what I mean? So we could talk about
it's an easy read. And I think I've put a post-it or something on every single page. Like, there's just so much. Like, each one-liner we could talk about it for hours. So
I know. I was reading it on the airplane. My boyfriend and I went on a cruise. Wow. And he won a free cruise and we went, and so I was reading it on the airplane, and he was like trying to hold my hand. I was like, no, and I like needed my pen to like write down like it was just underlining everything and writing it down, and I was like a mad woman, and I almost finished the book on the plane. It was that good. It was just like really captivating. So I highly recommend it, and it's a really, really spiritual book that he sort of distilled into a very accessible language that I just felt like it was sort of an accumulation of the last decade of my life and searching in different avenues for sort of a lot of different answers on what everything meant. And he really put it together in a really special way. So I feel really grateful for that. But the book is a transmission for sure. Whether that channel is coming through Rick, and I think he mentioned that as well, that it's just a channel, it's coming through. So I highly recommend this book to every single person, not just people who think they're quote unquote creative.
Right, which everyone has the capacity for.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts or comments you want to make here before we sign off?
No, no. I think I'm good. It's finally sunny here outside, and I'm just like looking. I live right by the park, so I'm just like looking out the window, and there's 5 million dogs running around. So that's what brings me the most joy is dogs. And I actually have a cat though, who's sleeping so peacefully. And I think that if I got a dog, she would murder me in my sleep. So I haven't done that. Yeah.
You can enjoy the ones in the backyard. So
I do. I'm just like the crazy dog lady of the park. And I just like every time I see a dog, I'm like, and my friends are like, do you do that to every single? I'm like, every single one. I could be like on the phone with someone in the middle of like a very important conversation. I'll be like, I'm so sorry. I have to call you right back. Something just came up. It'll be like a really cute dog. And they're like, it's a dog, isn't it? And I was like, can't comment on that. But we all have our thing.
There's a lot of those around too.
Yeah, so, for sure.
Excited. Well, we'll link to Benshen since I cannot recommend it enough, and the transformation opportunity that it allows for people to work through. And I think everyone, if you don't follow Desiree and the work that she's doing, please start, since you will also find a lot of inspiration in the work that you're doing in this world. So thank you so much for being here today, and
thank you so much.
See everyone soon.